Speaking of unfair, is how DC is being treated as far as crime statistics go. Now, we saw President Trump say, hey, we're going to clean up DC. There were a bunch of protests throughout DC from people who I guarantee you don't actually live in DC saying, no, the crime is down. We are safe. That was the big thing we heard from libs all last week. Hannah, this is actually really interesting. This has kind of been floating out there, but the mainstream is now just starting to pick up on this. Turns out DC is under investigation, so much so that a commander even got put on leave a couple months back for possibly manipulating the crime statistics. In other words, somebody got stabbed. Okay, well, instead of putting that as some sort of felony violent assault, let's just say individual injured went to the hospital and report it that way. Because if you actually look at this, if violent crime went down 60% in 2 years, my view is, well, geez, let's take those people and put them in charge everywhere. They're fantastic. But that's clearly not the case. Hannah, do you think, I don't know, do you think people are going to catch on to this whole idea that crime is down in DC?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely insanity. I saw that article and you almost want to laugh out loud because you really don't even have to be in Washington, D.C. to understand that there has been an extremely high rate of crime. I mean, I know people who live there who give me calls, who send me messages of things that they saw, of headlines they just read at local D.C. news stations. I mean, the crime has been absolutely outrageous. I know many people who don't even want to go to Washington, D.C. It used to be, this school trip, the annual school trip that high schools or middle schools will go to see all the monuments and see all the historical things that happen in Washington, D.C. And I know a lot of schools who've stopped doing that. A lot of parents who stopped sending their kids on these trips because of these skyrocketing crime rates. So it's very interesting to see the manipulation that they tried to do, because again, you don't even have to look at the data to understand that there's a problem, and what President Trump did is exactly what we the people want. And I think a lot of residents of Washington, D.C. also want that.
Yeah, I would like the dare to be put out to all of those libs saying, no, it's totally safe. Okay, cool. Here's a neighborhood. Go walk it at night unarmed by yourself.
Right.
Anthony, I appreciate the visual representation of agreement there. I would love to let you off on like a no leash here. What do you think your favorite statistic might be manipulated? In other words, like it's not a carjacking; it's a temporary procurement of a borrowed vehicle with unauthorization.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it would be like, no, they didn't ask that take their wallets from them. What happened was they accidentally dropped it, but they had their ID on them, so nobody knew whose wallet it was, so they just took it. Listen, I was just in that area a couple years ago, and I was like, what are all these blue boxes everywhere? And they're like, they're emergency call boxes. By the way, don't walk around in DC at night because it's not the safest. I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay. So then when I hear this report come out of it being safe, I'm thinking that's interesting because I was told not to walk around. Also, I'm pretty sure I read a report just a few days ago that one of the protesters was actually robbed. So the paid protester got robbed. So that was super interesting to me. I was so super safe.
Yeah, I don't want to laugh at somebody else's misfortune, but just the irony there is just too dripping with deliciousness that it's hard to not. Like, yeah, it's totally safe here. By the way, please put the gun down. Yeah, wild to think about.